Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L, and today let's talk about the Black Clover manga. So this isn't really a topic that's very common on the channel, but hey, here we are. So background really quick, I got a request the other day, maybe 3 days ago, to talk about the recent Black Clover chapters, or to make a review of the recent Black Clover chapter. I don't think I'll do a full-on review, but instead I want to make this video and just mention man, Black Clover has been pretty darn exciting in the last few chapters. And while the last few chapters have also been sad, I know other anime talkers, anime manga reviewers, they aren't feeling it. Angry, if you're watching this video, thinking of you, buddy. But you know, sad stuff. But the recent chapters have been pretty amazing for Black Clover, and so in this video I kind of just want to talk about it and just kind of like celebrate it. I don't think this will go on too long. If you're by some chance just someone who's wondering what's going on with Black Clover, I'll give you the quick explanation, but just know, spoilers all around. So what makes the last couple of chapters, I think, really special, like if you are a Black Clover fan, chances are these are pretty satisfying chapters for you. What makes them pretty special is payoff. It's all about the payoff. There's a lot of plot points being paid off at this moment in time, and it feels really good. So the ones that we're going to talk about are Asta's development, the main mystery arc of Black Clover being answered, that is the identity of the main villain, and then two very powerful characters living up to the hype. When it comes to anime and manga fans, obviously living up to the hype is a big challenge for a lot of characters, and in this point in time I feel like these characters have kind of jumped up there. So let's just go quickly through it. The first big payoff, Asta's development. Asta is a character, and he does get character development, as you know, as contrary to popular belief, he does get character development. Now mind you, Asta's character development is still something very much along the lines of the path that Naruto took in his character development. But there's still something to be appreciated in seeing the journey, right? In the most recent chapters, the payoff for Asta was he got to a point where he is now able to stop someone from suicide attacking, or from becoming a suicide bomb. The reason that was important was because this has been something that Asta has encountered at least 2 times before. And the reason it becomes important is the context that Asta kind of associates to it. So in the first event, Asta fought one of the villainous organizations. He fought with this guy. This guy ended up giving up his life to try and take down everyone. And one of the words that Asta said at the end of that fight was that he couldn't understand how people could just throw away their life, right? Fast forward to around the chapter 80s, or yeah, but around the 80s, Asta had to fight a very strong opponent. This opponent as well pretty much tried to pull off a suicide attack, but throughout that whole process, what Asta learned about this guy was that he had something, he had a reason why he was doing it. Asta came to the conclusion, well, that guy who was fighting him, even though they were enemies, he also had a story, he also had some pain and suffering. And then you come into now the recent chapters around 146. Asta knows their trick. Asta knows that these people are prone to blowing themselves up, and he's now gotten fast and quick-witted enough to go in and stop them. And in this moment, Asta says that he's seen 2 other guys try to blow themselves up like that. So he's not going to let it happen anymore. He doesn't want people to just get off like this. He wants to understand more. When it comes to Asta's character development, those 3 events are a nice procession showing just where Asta's developing as a character. And his development is centered around understanding and communication, which is, again, modeled after Naruto, but that's not a big deal. The point is that there was a journey there. You can appreciate the journey. Asta didn't understand why people would do things. He still doesn't understand, but he knows enough to know you shouldn't throw away your life. Anyway, that's the Asta development. Moving on, the next big thing that's been answered in the recent chapters, the Lich mystery. The mystery of who was the leader of the villainous organization. Who was he? Because throughout Black Clover, there were little hints being dropped that it was someone within the current system of important characters. The Clover Kingdom has the Magic Knights. The Magic Knights are the guys that are the top of the top, and within them, the Black Clover story was saying, hey, one of these people is a traitor, right? What made the Lich mystery was so good, and it's cool to see it, is that we had other characters actively trying to figure out who the traitor was. And what pretty much worked out here was that one of the characters for sure got his guess right and did confront the person or the main suspect that he was assuming would be the traitor. At that time, the suspect pulled off a convincing ruse to make the character, and to some degree some of the readers, believe, okay, maybe it is not this person after all. What we ultimately get with the traitor being revealed in these last couple of chapters, for the fans that kept believing that this person was going to be the traitor, you feel really good. And for people who really like the characters, who are trying to figure out the mystery, you can give them props because they did come really close. There is a difference between not being able to guess at who the person is and then guessing at who the person is, but then having the person pull a maneuver that you can't try and predict, or you can't try and break down. So with the reveal of the mystery, it was just a satisfying reveal overall. For people who guessed it, feels good. For the people who didn't guess it, all right. Like, you know, that means the mystery did a pretty good job at throwing you off and you were shaken in your beliefs. As a reader, you could feel pretty proud about that because it's like, okay, cool. It's like a cool time. Of course, there will always be the fans that say, okay, that was the most predictable thing ever. But it's like, to some degree, once you read so many stories, you can learn to predict the relative story beats that they're going to try and pull off. The point here was it entertaining? And when you consider the respect that was given to the characters who were trying to figure it out, yeah, I think it was worthwhile. One of the big running mysteries of Black Clover has been answered, and naturally, as a fan, it's cool to enjoy that. And next, going off to the payoff about hype. So in the last couple of chapters, we have the confrontation between the Magic Emperor, the man that is denoted as being the most awesome badass wizard in all of the land. He's the top, so he's got a lot of hype associated to him. And then we have the main villain. The main villain, automatically, he needs to have a lot of hype. Now with Black Clover, the main villain has been shown to be a bit more vulnerable. That vulnerability makes things more exciting because now it's like, okay, you know, you have the Magic Emperor who we are told is super strong, and then we have the villain who needs to be super strong, but we know has some weaknesses, so this might be a pretty interesting fight. Are they going to go for a total one-sided clash with the Magic Emperor winning, or are they going to go and give the villain some opportunity to be able to fight it? And what ultimately you get with the two characters is that the Magic Emperor, as appropriate to his name, pulls off a lot of really cool maneuvers. His whole fight with the leader of the cult, let's call him Lich, his whole fight with him is pretty awesome. It's a pretty awesome fight. There's a lot of really cool maneuvers and he has really cool magic, and it's like, all right, cool. And the whole time he maintains an advantage, and it's like, that's great. That's super great. That's pretty badass awesome. But then how do you get the situation unfolding? At the end of the day, and this is a big spoiler, so like giving it that final second to get out of there, the Magic Emperor dies. Right there, a very fan-loved character, a fan favorite, he goes down. And why did he go down? Did the villain pull off like a really stupid Deus Ex Machina? Actually, no, he didn't. The villain, from a very long time, had been set up that he was storing a lot of magic. Whenever that magic started to leak, his people were freaking out because it's like, no, we can't let that magic leak. That magic's a trump card. It's pretty much like you could imagine when it leaked, he was becoming like a human bomb. Again, these people really like blowing things up with their bodies. But going back to this, we already got the setup that this guy was storing incredible magic. When he released the magic, did he release that the Emperor? Is that why he had died? No. He took advantage of the thing that the Emperor has to do. He took advantage of the Emperor's duty. He aimed the magic instead at every single citizen of the kingdom. Right there, that isn't really a cop-out. That isn't really a Deus Ex Machina. There was the appropriate build-up. What the villain ultimately took advantage of there was the nature of a good man. And so it gave a very satisfying victory. For the villain at least. You have the man protecting the people by using extreme magic to match the extreme magic of 100,000 swords being pointed at every single person's heart, and managed to defuse that with his magic. When you have two giant, I guess, genocide-inducing magics going at it, or one genocide-inducing magic being stopped by another equally as overpowered magic, the villain taking the opportunity that that's about to happen, taking the opportunity to slash the man when he's still open like that, yeah, that's a worthwhile victory. That feels like a well-earned victory. The villain didn't win because he was stronger than this one opponent this one time. The villain won because he was smart. He shored up his defenses. He accumulated energy for like this one day and unleashed it, and was able to gain himself the window of opportunity he needed to strike the man down. Again, as a fan, this feels a lot better than a bullshit power-up. And so how could you not enjoy that? So, you know, the last couple of chapters, while simple, like a lot of it's still very simple stuff unfolding. It's very satisfying. It's a very satisfying thing where you have all the hype like that was built up in the previous chapters, all the events coming to fruition now. It's like you look at these chapters and it makes you wonder, is Black Clover ending? Like, we've dealt with a lot. Well, you know, ideally Black Clover is an ending. It's an entertaining little manga for sure. We still have other things that we can explore in the Black Clover world. But when it comes to like this arc of these villains, our main villains for the first 150 chapters of Black Clover so far, it's like it makes you feel like there's a sense of finality coming here because a lot of our plot points are being exhausted. But still, it's cool stuff overall. You have all the plot elements being put into place, and now it's like, well, what's going to happen next? Is now we're moving into that next stage of whatever plan the evil people have. So any other little things that I really want to talk about for the recent chapters of Black Clover? Well, there's a few, I guess, cool philosophical ideas. The one that I think stands out the most, because, you know, like there's always going to be like the philosophy that the main character is going to like throw around, like, you know, people have to understand each other, communication, oh, there's this human nature and all that. When the one that has the interesting philosophies here, like obviously isn't going to be the main character. The main character, those philosophies are so explored, there's no point talking about it. The ones that are interesting are the ones coming from the villain, because he's talking, his philosophies kind of, depending on how far you want to go with it, kind of revolve around contradictions. One of the first philosophies that he kind of talks about is he comes to a conclusion that the man that he's facing, the Magic Emperor, is so strong because fate needed the Magic Emperor to be strong. In that man's words, in the villain's words, what he ultimately comes to is that he wants to do something that's going against fate. He's fighting against fate itself, and fate produced the final countermeasure, that being the Magic Emperor. The Magic Emperor's power revolved around time, so making the association from time manipulation to fate, you know, it's a pretty fluid association. But what's really interesting here is that the man talks about how fate is going to be overturned by the power of magic crystals that he went around collecting. And it's like, to some degree, you could say, well, if the means to defeat fate exist within the world, and fate really, you know, it could have destroyed the means by which to do it, but it didn't, then maybe it's all fated to happen anyway. You know, like you could still play, well, if it's within the world governed by fate, then maybe what you're doing is also fate, right? It's layers upon layers of fate. You could like start playing that game, and truthfully, that character, the villain, he's shown us that his mentality might be a little bit compromised to the point that any kind of conclusions he comes to are more or less stupid. Well, not stupid, but incomplete, half-baked. They're not really something that we should put a lot of credence into. Moving on, the other little philosophy that the villain is introducing in a contradiction is that towards the moment that he wins, he talks about human nature, and what he pretty much is saying that humans aren't worth anything, and then to his loyal followers he points out everything that sucks about them. What the guy pretty much did was that he hates humans for being bad people. He hates a liar for being a liar, but then he takes advantage of the fact that he's pretty sure the liar's gonna lie to further his own goals, right? So there's a level of hypocrisy there, because the guy's taking advantage of things that he knows to be relative absolutes. He's taking advantage of people's ill nature, of people's ill will, and using it to his own advances. And then he tries to maintain the moral high ground. Like in his words, he says, "In the end, you humans are egotistical and beyond help. What foolish, ugly existences." And it's like, guy, in all your pursuit, you've become like worse than them. You just took advantage of them too. You are by far like just as bad. And this is one of those things where you can say, well, like, you fight monsters, you become a monster, right? Lich surrounded himself with humans who he saw were reflections of the humans he originally hated. He surrounded himself with more of what he hated because it confirms what he thought about humans. Whereas on the other side, on the Magic Emperor's side, you have his comparisons. He's talking about humans that are doing good things for the country, humans that care about other people, humans that are moving along the path. So when you come to see those two characters again, the Magic Emperor versus the villain, you see that even when it came to the perspective of the people they surrounded themselves on and the people that they believed in, the bad guy, Lich, he pretty much believed in humanity's worst, while the Emperor believed in humanity's best. They both still believe in humanity. It's just, you know, they have different subsects that they chose to put their faith in. So again, the villain introduces some pretty interesting philosophies, and contradictions always going to be something pretty cool to see in a character, because contradictions are something that happens to regular people. It's just you're never in dramatic enough situations to spot your contradictions. That said, Black Clover, pretty fun chapters for the last couple. I really enjoyed them. So those are my thoughts on the last couple of chapters, pretty much going from 147 to, I say, maybe around 142. But yeah, guys, let me know what you thought down below. Let me know if you've been enjoying the chapters of Black Clover. And until next time, man, I hope you have a great day.